dinner, I've decided to make a kind of an Americanized version of stuffed shells. I'm going to make a cheddar cheese sauce, some ground turkey instead of ground beef, but use just some regular salt, pepper, a little bit of chili powder to season it all, and kind of make a macaroni and cheese but with giant shells. Anyway, you'll see how it turns out. Start with, I have water boiling on the stove that I'm going to add my giant shells to, because we have to cook those. To that I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil so that they do not stick together, and a teaspoon of salt just to give the shells a little bit of flavor so they're not so bland. We're going to stir that and let those shells cook just until they're slightly al dente, because they're going to cook again when we bake our stuffed shells. Okay, then we're going to move over to our other pan on our stove and make our cheddar cheese sauce. So I'm going to start with turning on the right burner. So I have 3 cups of heavy cream that I'm just going to heat up on my stove and let that thicken just a little bit. Then we're going to add our cheddar cheese and a little bit of parmesan to give it a little bit of salt. And then we'll finish up our sauce. So I have 3 cups of heavy cream on our stove warming up. It's getting a little bubbly right around the edges. So this is the point where I'm going to stir in my pepper, which I have a teaspoon of white pepper. And then I have a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. And we're going to stir that. And I'm going to add a cup of grated Parmesan cheese. And stir. And then I have 3 cups of shredded cheddar that I'm also going to stir in. And then we're just going to let that sauce thicken up. And while it thickens, we're going to make our ground turkey. So I'm using my 2 front burners on my stove, so I decided to use my electric skillet to brown the turkey tonight. So I have 2.5 pounds of turkey, and yes, that's a lot, but yes, we will eat it. I have my electric skillet at 375 degrees. I'm going to break up the turkey. Okay, now I'm going to add, I have a teaspoon of white pepper. I don't know if I've explained this to y'all, but my family, well, my children, if they see black specks in it, it's too hot and they won't eat it. So we use white pepper and they have no idea it's in there. And then I have 3 teaspoons of chili powder. And I'm going to add a teaspoon, of salt. So I'm going to put the lid back on my electric skillet, and then I'm going to move on to creating the rest of the filling for the shells. The nice thing about this is I can move it right out of the way and get started on my next project. So I have 4 cups of ricotta cheese. I'm going to add a cup of Parmesan cheese to that. Mix it together. Alright, and then I'm going to add 3 eggs. This is going to bind the cheese once it's stuffed into the shells. Now we're just going to have to wait for our turkey to finish cooking, our shells to finish, and then we'll get started. So our cheddar cheese sauce has thickened up nicely, you can see. And our shells are finished cooking. So all we're waiting on is the turkey. But in the meantime, we're going to prep our casserole dish. So I'm going to ladle out some of the cheddar cheese sauce to the bottom of the pan. This way your shells don't stick to the bottom and they get some nice flavor on them. While the turkey is cooking, we also get an opportunity to let the shells cool down because I'm going to have to hold them to stuff them. And if they're too hot, I'm kind of a wimp. So all we need now is for the turkey to cook and we'll be ready to get started. So our turkey is finished cooking, as you can see. So I'm going to take, I've turned the heat off. Now I'm going to take a little bit of my turkey mixture and add it in with the ricotta cheese and parmesan cheese mixture. So that we can stuff that into our shells. So about half. And the other half we're going to sprinkle over the top of our shells. Okay. Alright, so I put my gloves on, so hopefully the shells will not burn my fingers. So what we're going to do is just open up the middle of the shell, take a heaping tablespoon, of the filling, and put it inside the shell, wrap the shell around, put it in our pan. And we're going to continue to do that until we have filled all of the shells. So I've stuffed all our shells. Now I'm going to put a small layer of sauce over the top. Then I'm going to crumple up the meat and put it on top. There we go. Now we are going to take the rest of our sauce and pour it over the top. And then, because there's clearly not enough cheese in this dish, I'm going to take some shredded cheddar and put it over the top. And it's about 2 cups, give or take a little. We like cheese. Now I'm going to bake this in a 375-degree oven for the next 30 minutes until the cheese is nice and golden brown on top. And then we'll eat. So our stuffed shells and cheese are out of the oven. We're going to let this cool off for about 5 minutes, then we'll make a plate and get ready to eat dinner.